Okay folks, today I'm going to be talking about walking bass lines on the guitar and how to appropriately and effectively walk and comp at the same time. And by that I mean this thing. Alright, so maybe you've heard some of your favorite players do that from time to time. That's something you may employ in a duo or a trio or any type of small group setting where the guitar is perhaps the only rhythm instrument and you want to give some life to those, medium or up-tempo swing or bebop tunes. And even if you don't find yourself in that type of situation very often, it's still good to educate yourself on bass lines and how the bass functions in a jazz ensemble, just in case you're ever writing music or you need to help out the new guy or something. And really, it's good to do this with all components of the rhythm section, so piano and drums too. So if you're a jazz guitarist who's new to bass lines, when it comes to learning how to walk, my number one piece of advice is don't learn from other guitarists. I know it's ironic, you already clicked on this video, so it's a little too late. But seriously, if you want to gain insight on this concept, you should go straight to the source, bass players. And when it comes to walking bass, we're talking about old-time swing and bebop guys. I mean, every jazz bassist walks, that's a given, but if you're looking for a solid place to start, you can't go wrong with some Ray Brown, Paul Chambers, straight ahead stuff. Maybe like some Mingus, Ron Carter. You're going to hear guitarists walk bass lines at some point, and it might be more relatable, but don't be tempted to use that as a foundation. Try to pick up as much as you can from actual bass players, listen to recordings of the greats, and seek out any tips from any of your bassist friends. But while you're here, we can go over some fundamentals. So probably the number one most common sense thing you can do to start off is just hit the root of every chord. Simple yet totally effective. So I'm going to take a typical jazz progression, a 2-5-1 in the key of B flat, so C minor 7, F7, B flat, major 7, then I'm going to turn it around with a G7. Okay, and I'm going to start off at a slow to medium tempo, 4/4 time, and I'm just going to hit the root as a whole note, So it's going to sound something like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, C, 2, 3, 4, F, 2, 3, 4, B flat, 2, 3, 4, G, 2, 3. Try some variations, hit different octaves. F, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, 4. Okay? It's kind of just like learning chords. Though it's just a totally different mindset and hand feel, just getting used to only focusing on one note. Again, very simple, but believe me, every soloist who plays over changes wants to hear roots. We don't want to hear fancy, ambiguous stuff. We want to hear clear, solid roots. So the changes are easy to follow. So if you're practicing with a friend or a teacher or just using a loop pedal, pick an easy song and try this out. Just hit the roots. Totally fine to start off this way, one step at a time, and you'd be surprised at just how good this sounds. You can add in a little rhythm if you want to, like a 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, just focus on those roots, and going forward, when you start adding other notes, never lose the root. People can get cocky, they can overcomplicate things, try to do too much, and that's never good. There will be a time when you can break rules, try new ideas, try some other chord tones on the downbeat, but when you're just starting off, really focus on the roots. Next, add in the fifth. You'll hear a lot of people say, you know, roots and fifths, that's the name of the game. And so what I'm going to do is play the root on the downbeat, and I'll play the fifth on beat 3. That's going to kind of give us a 2 feel. So something like this, a 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, 4, a 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, 4. So now I've got 2 notes. You know, I can create a little more motion. All right, it's getting a little more interesting. And after I'm solid with my roots and my fifths, I can try throwing in a little bit of chromaticism. You know, approach each new chord, each new root, either by a half step above or below. So something like this. Still kind of the 2 feel. At this point, we're pretty close to walking. You know, the only thing left to do is fill in the rest of the measure. And again, we're in 4/4 time, so I want a note on each beat. So I'm talking about drawing from scales, you know, all the chord tones, chromaticism, you know, mix it all together, and you'll come up with linear shapes, you know, and it might sound something like this. So that should get you started on walking bass lines. And to be honest, what I just went over is nothing remarkable. It's pretty elementary jazz bass material. You can find it in many books, many free lesson sites, probably other YouTube videos. But take a little bit of time, you know, give it some practice. And once you have a basic understanding of how to walk, we can move on to the main thing I wanted to talk about in this video, which is this walk and comp thing. So, you know, as guitar became more of a mainstream instrument and guitarists were playing more solo, duo, or in small groups with no bass, they would walk bass lines to give the music more life, because that's the importance of a bass in a jazz ensemble. It's the motor that really drives the tempo forward. I mean, if you have a group and you're all just kind of sitting around comping and playing freely and loosely, you're going to have time problems. You need something to keep the beat, especially with, you know, swing, medium, and up-tempo songs. And you know, for a while, when you wanted to keep good time on guitar, the traditional comping option was, you know, like the Freddie Green or Gypsy, just, you know, quarter note strumming. You know, and yeah, that's cool. Nothing wrong with that, but eventually players wanted to evolve and try new things. So at some point, guitarists were messing around with bass lines, and they realized, oh, you know, as I hit the root of each chord, there's also a, you know, voicing that I can play to fill out the harmonies. So like, you know, these convenient, you know, friendly shapes we know on guitar, we can just break those up a little bit, you know, and so we get 2 parts. We can separate the bass and then have the rest of the chord, you know, almost be like 2 hands on the piano, you know, left hand, and then the right hand is comping, you know, with the harmony. And the popular rhythm of choice for this comping was this really hard swinging and of 1 idea, like this. 1 and 2, 3, 4, 1 and 2, 3, 4, 1 and 2, 3, 4, 1 and 2, 3, 4. Okay? So For a while, that was the hip thing for guitarists to do in these, unique, no bass situations. And yes, it sounded very cool. It was new. It was showy and demonstrated a higher level of sophistication when it came to comping. The problem is that, in my opinion, throughout the years, it's just become so overused and monotonous. And I'm referring particularly to that and of one rhythm. It just seems like whenever guitar players, walk a bass line and then they want to throw in chords, they always default to that same exact rhythm. So everybody just ends up playing the same exact thing all the time. And I get it a little bit, when you hit the downbeat, the root on the downbeat, there's a convenient chord voicing there, and it's probably easier to hit the root first and then bounce off with the chord after the fact. So this rhythm kind of just becomes a habit, and I don't like the idea of just slipping into autopilot and leaving it at that. Ideally, I think you want your comping to be a little bit interactive with the soloist. So what I'm going to do is simply add in a little bit of rhythmic variety to my comping. So we already have the and of one like this. Maybe you're getting a little bit tired of that one too. But, just sticking with that first beat where the convenient chord voicing is, instead of the and of one, we could play right on the downbeat. So it would sound like this. A 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, so something a little bit different. And now we have two, rhythmic options for comping. And, what if you mix those together? So like 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, and 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 4, 1, and 2, 3, 4, 1, and 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, and 2, 3, 4, 1. So there I was alternating, then I flipped it, and already just a little bit more interesting. So that's a good thing. One more idea you could try is anticipating the one. So you're actually going to hit the chord before the downbeat of the bass note. It's going to sound like this: a 1, 2, 3, 4, and 2, 3, 4, and 2, 3, 4, and 1, 2, 4, and 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's an interesting one. It requires a little bit of thinking ahead, which again, I'm trying to be an active comper. I don't just want to go on autopilot, let my hands take over. I want to, put some thought and effort into what I'm doing. So, you have to think where you're going and, try to hit that chord voicing before the downbeat. Now I can try to mix all three of those rhythmic ideas, and I'll get something like this. A 2, 3, 4. All right, so already less predictable, a little bit more interesting, some rhythmic variety. I'm thinking about what I'm doing, I'm not just I'm not just tuning out. And so far, we've just been focusing on beat one. If you want to take this a step further, you could try to fit in voicings in other parts of the measure, other beats. So, look at your bass lines and try to find, other chord tones where you might be able to sneak in like an inversion or make a substitution or something. So just try to find other opportunities for you to play some chords, maybe like beats 1 and 3. So you get something like this: A 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, so I'm getting a little bit more active, throwing in some chords, trying to, come up with some rhythms to play. And yeah, to me, that's just much more interesting than good old and of one. But, something else you definitely want to take into consideration is like how you normally comp in an ensemble. So you might want to, just record yourself comping for a solo, or if you have any recordings like from sessions or live performances, check it out and see what rhythms you tend to go to. Try to pick out some things you like and actually try to incorporate it, in this like walking bass line style on guitar. And of course, you can listen to some of your favorite players and hear how they comp. Guitarists, pianists, any chordal instrument. And don't be afraid to transcribe a little bit of comping. We transcribe solos, we learn vocabulary, we learn lines, learn how to improvise. Well, comping can work the same exact way. You can learn new voicings, learn rhythms, and try to find some ideas you like and, work it out in this bass line style on guitar. Well, that's going to do it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you found my insights on bass lines and comping helpful. If you have any thoughts or questions, please feel free to leave a comment below. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to my channel, and please consider supporting me on Patreon. There's a link down in the description below. Thank you so much again, and I'll see you next time.